Barbarian Games. I'm Jason,
I'm Peter.
and we have a special guest with us today. We have Pat Kilbane. Say hi, Pat.
Hello. Thanks for having me, guys. It's good to see you again. It's been, I think, a couple of years, Jason, a couple of Gary Cons ago.
Yeah, because we usually
That we
run
hang out.
into each other in the Midwest, and I missed the last one.
Ah, I see.
So,
Okay.
yeah, but it's good to see you again. And here on the video, it all looks like we're the same height. So I feel like we're evened out now.
Hey, I've grown. I must have grown. Normally, I'm the short
Pat,
guy.
I'm 6'2", and I feel like a tiny little midget next to Pat. So.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm 5'8".
So we are going to talk to Pat in the fourth story. We're going to talk about The Dreams in Gary's Basement, which is an excellent documentary about the early years of TSR and of specifically Gary Gygax and the birth of D&D. But let's jump into our stories first. I do see we have some people in the chat. Hello, everybody. All right, so the first story we have is that the estate of J.R.R. Tolkien just revealed a trove of his unseen Lord of the Rings artwork. So this is his artwork, his drawings. I actually haven't seen all of these yet. So I have seen some of the things that he sketched. You know, if you have early editions of The Hobbit, I think has some of his sketches in it and things like that. Have you both seen Tolkien's artwork before?
I have, because I put together slides for this, but so I'm going to share some of them with you all.
I've only seen bits and pieces. It reminds me there was I think an early 20th century kind of children's book author, illustrator named is it Rackham or Rack something?
Mm-hmm.
I want to say Rackham, but I know that's also that's a game thing. But it was reminiscent of some of those. It's excellent work, really. I mean, the guy was obviously a multidisciplinary genius.
It's just amazing. I mean, before we even get into talking about some of the things that they discovered, I was just thinking about, some of the things that he came up with on his own, in terms of the type of research that he would go into to come up with the names for things. Even something, I guess I might have heard this before, but I was either reminded of or just learned it, that, the hobbits, even the name Hobbit, he, as a linguist, he sat down and figured out what that would be, that it's a mixture of two different words that mean, what is it? Person who lives in a hole, something like that.
Wow. Nice.
He took an Old English word for person and an Old English word for hole and basically shoved them together into, what it was? Dammy Lee, the architect, who has a great video series, a great YouTube channel all about our built environment, and she does things about real architecture and fantasy architecture sometimes. So she did a whole thing about how in Tolkien's work the architecture reflects the different races.
Wow.
So
yeah.
The hobbits live in a hole, the elves live in nature with things that go around the trees. They don't even cut the trees down, they hang from the trees. How the dwarves just go right through the ground. That even from an architectural standpoint, he thought about things.
Wow.
Just amazing.
Yeah.
So some of the things that they found, some detailed maps and drawings, visual depictions of Middle Earth, including Moria, the Misty Mountains, Rivendell, and Lothlorien. And this is the first time I'm seeing it right here on the screen.
Wow.
I'm blown away.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so there's the entrance to is it the Mines of Moria, I believe?
Mm-hmm.
And then I forget what is this? The Hobbiton. This is the Hobbiton.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny. This looks a lot different than the movies. Like, they have all these outbuildings, which you don't really see in the movies. You only see like the little holes down in there, up on the hill there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think it reminds me too of tapestries type painting. There's a medieval quality to it that seems reminiscent of that.
It's very pastoral. Obviously, people talked endlessly about how his own life influenced the things that he wrote, and people talk a lot about World War I as being inspiration for Mordor, etc. But when I was reading more about just his hometown, well, not hometown, I mean where he grew up, and I think it's pronounced Sarhole. It's Sarehole. This beautiful, a lot like what you see on the drawing on the right. It kind of looks like what the village he lived in as a child looked like. It had a little
Interesting.
mill that actually ground corn. It really was working, all these things. And it's near Birmingham. And Birmingham, for people who don't know, it's sort of the Chicago or Detroit of England. It's just industrial and heavy and oppressive and dark. And it eventually swallowed up Sarhol. It grew and it swallowed up his little hometown, and kind of the same way that Mordor was going. So,
Interesting.
you kind of see his childhood there in these pictures.
Right.
Because I was reading that he actually denied that World War I had anything to do with his
Possibly
writings.
true. I mean,
He actually said it did not.
yeah.
So.
I mean, really, Birmingham is enough to be Mordor. I'll tell you the truth.
All right, here's another one. There's
right.
Schmaug.
This one I had seen.
Yeah, this
Very
one
interesting. Not the robust kind of muscular dragon that we're used to seeing.
It looks like a kid's cartoon.
Yeah, and it's so neat because we just last week, was it last week or the week before, that we were talking about, that we had Mike Whitwer. Pat, you know,
it was
Mike,
last
right?
week.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah,
Mike's
so
a
have
great
you seen
guy.
his new book, Dragons?
I have not. No. Is it out now?
Oh yeah, it's good.
Just came out. Amazing. I mean, it's very much in the vein of books like Gnomes, if you remember that book from the 70s, or Barlow's Guide to Extraterrestrials. It's one of those DW books with lots of great illustrations. And so we were talking about, what dragons really were, and this would be interesting to kind of put in that context.
Yeah.
What we see here.
Yeah. Sort of dog-headed, it looks like. Yeah, kind of
Yep.
A lot of the medieval monsters had that feeling like they were Frankenstein patchwork of different pieces of different creatures. You've got almost a bird-like claws and then a dog head and sort of a legless lizard kind of a body. And the wings, obviously. Yeah, very interesting. Otherworldly.
That goes back into mythology too. Like, like all the mythological creatures were a lot like that.
Yeah. I mean, even just in this case, to see the in the background there, you have these suits of armor that are sort of hung up on the wall, like maybe maybe Smaug put his trophies up there the same way you would put, a deer head or something.
Right,
on the
right.
wall, which I think is great. I love the thing that Tolkien was thinking of it that way.
Very cool. Yeah, and of course the horde with, like as a D&D player, you're like, oh, what do you got a sword in there? What do you got a shield? What kind of magic items might be in that pile right there?
Yeah, it's true.
And it was interesting. Oh, I was gonna say it was interesting how when we talked to him last week it was last week, I believe, where he had mentioned about dragon hordes, and so it's all in the book talking about why dragons hoard stuff.
Yeah,
very
that's
cool.
great. I see a few tomato slices and some sausage in there too, I think.
Oh, right, yeah.
It looks pretty delicious. I see some nachos in the back.
Can make a hoagie if you just bring the bread.
I think the dragon's having a full English there, right? Yeah. Might be some beans up in there.
That's great. I love it. So anyways, some amazing stuff that's come to light here. Looks like a watercolor maybe?
Yeah, it's the Misty Mountains.
Beautiful, beautiful. So apparently this is all just online now on a website. I'd love to know if they end up doing something, that you can own, some sort of a book.
And where was it? Where was it discovered again? It seems like what's odd is just that the guy has been so thoroughly researched and everything's so thoroughly mined that there's anything undiscovered to be found.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's strange. I thought I remembered them saying something about it actually just being amongst his things that somebody had just not gotten to yet.
Wow.
But I mean, well, Pat, working with archivists and having to do archival work yourself, just how much there is to go through.
Right. Yeah. And if you're doing it properly, I mean, it's painstaking, all of the cataloging and proper handling and whatever, making everything archive safe for storage and all that. So yeah, I guess I understand.
Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll talk more about archiving when we get to your film, because I wanted to ask some things about your process there.
Sure.
We'll come back to that. So here we have Rivendell, just I guess in his own handwriting at the bottom of there.
I have to imagine that Bilbo one, is that his art? Because it looks so different than the other ones. Like, I guess it's still his.
That does look very different. And even the lettering, it's very carefully done. It looks prepared for publication.
Yeah, that might be a published piece. I think I read somewhere that maybe that one was one of the ones that went into one of the books or something like that. So that might have been a
It's
press piece.
interesting that the choice of media though too, like the Rivendell, it might just have had sun exposure. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but there's the sort of the lightness of it,
It
sort
feels
of
like
the
pencils.
feels like what?
Pencils.
Yeah, it does.
It
Yeah,
looks
and
like
the sort of the deep, sort of richer colors that you see on the right there. Yeah, this is
it also
Maybe.
kind of gets me thinking a little bit about the process of writing something like this. I mean, obviously, J.R.R. Tolkien is the gold standard for world building and overthinking, right? But when you think about what we have to work with today, all of the different technology that we have, and then you put that in the context of all the distractions and all the things that take up our time every day, and compare that against what it would be like in the 1930s, where you just have really paper and some sort of whatever you're using to draw or paint on it, and you've got all the time to just sit there and maybe meditate over what it is that you're making and imagine yourself in that world in a way that I just don't think there's as much. You could do it technically today, but for most people, they're just really, life is too hurried.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's an expectation with work back then. It's just like classes for kids, educationally, everyone had just had a lot more patience. They were doing more difficult reading, more difficult math at the same ages,
Yeah.
100 years ago. It's unbelievable what they were able to absorb. And if you read something like Melville and the way that the sentences go on and on, it's like, man, my brain's not even holding on to the first half of this sentence, and we're so far down the road here. But you're totally right. It's a completely different way of thinking. And in some ways, it's surprising that we have geniuses still on the planet who are making incredible breakthroughs, because the challenges that we have now that Newton didn't have I mean, it's ridiculous, the distractions that we have now.
It's so true. I mean, I was just thinking about the things that you would have done in the 1930s, let's say, and I mean even handwriting. When we talk about how much better everybody's handwriting was back then, so a few years ago, I decided, well, I want to find out why. What can you do to do that? So I found some handwriting instruction workbooks, the kind of things school children would have been
Wow,
doing
that's
back then.
awesome. I
There's a
like
thing
where you're
called
going with this.
the Palmer method, I think it was called. And I suddenly realized, so one of the things my grandfather, when he had great handwriting, when he would begin to write, he would always kind of loosen his arm up first and kind of do a little sweep back and forth. And I thought that was his own personal affectation or something.
Right.
Then I read the Palmer method and I realized that they teach you to basically have muscle memory. You're almost like being a musician when you write.
Wow.
And there's ways that you're supposed
Wow.
to move your hand, and the time that you take to think about it, which we don't do and all anymore.
Yeah. With my handwriting, I essentially have my hand moving across and then down. And so if I'm writing with a pen, I'm smudging. And I know people use a quill, right, kind of from underneath, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things. If you're using, an inkwell, you have to be very precise about kind of how you're holding your hand and everything. And the amount of ink in the pen, and like when to reload it, and how to use pressure to make strokes thicker, thinner. I mean, it's pretty extraordinary.
Well, do you remember the Charlie Brown comics where the running joke of his ink getting all over the page?
Yes.
No, I don't remember that.
I don't know how old those are, because it's one of those things I might have just seen them in the books of the comics. It might have been comics from the 1950s or 60s. But when Charlie Brown would try to write a letter, because he was using a fountain pen, the ink would just go everywhere. And so Charles Schultz would, make the ink go everywhere in the comic. And I never got that joke until I was older and found out what a fountain pen was.
Right.
Yeah, so the funny thing is when I write, if I don't take my time, my handwriting can get a little sloppy or whatever. But because I was a trained draftsman, so I actually learned how to draft by hand. I did started with paper and pen, paper and pencil, and then when I went into the working force, that's what I learned in school. When I went to the working force, I started with an engineering company as my first job, my first real job. I went to what they call ink and Mylar. So Mylar, you can kind of see through it, mostly see through it. And then you
Right.
have these ink pens. And so handwriting was,
I'm imagining them presenting you your pen like
yeah, well,
it's a sword.
no, it was
Wow.
a
Okay.
set of
Wow.
pens.
That's
And,
awesome.
and then all your tools, you had all these different tools, but so in some ways, yes, I did draft and draw for a living, like technical drawing, but it was also handwriting was a big part of it because you had to put your notes on. So I
Right.
actually had to really, I mean, I learned it in high school, but then when I went to the workforce, I really had to refine it. So when I think about it, when I sit down and actually get myself into that good handwriting mode, I actually have excellent handwriting.
It seems to me on blueprints, isn't there kind of almost an italic block printing or something?
Yeah, there is. Okay, so if you're doing it by hand, there is sort of this engineering style that everybody sort of tends to adopt because it's just about, it's just one of those things. It's an industry standard kind of thing, and there's reasons for it. But they also have these. It's like a little triangle thing with an arm with a pen on it, like not a writing pen, but like a metal pen. And then the other arm goes out and you stick your writing pen into that.
Right. Okay.
And then you put your letter guide on there and you go to your letters and you go A.
Right.
And you get this, it looks like somebody typed it. So
Right.
so if it needs to be exact like that, we use that, but we didn't use it a whole lot because all of us were kind of like, we were kind of proud of our handwriting. So we just
Right.
and it looked personally, I think it looked better because it was cooler.
It does. It does. It looks pretty cool to find those things. And again, there's one of the things that's so great here is that people could actually find Tolkien's own hand on this paper. Something that could, an actual object that could be found, and it just gives you a connection to him.
Good Lord, man! Can you imagine how much these are worth?
I'm sure that they would never be sold.
Right? No. I would. I hope they're never really sold. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like the value of these are probably through the roof.
They'll be auctioned at Gary Con.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
The last thing I'll say on this before we move off of Tolkien is, after watching your film, Pat, I've been going back and reading other people's things again. I just I hadn't read Slaying the Dragon or Slayer of Dragons.
Slaying the Dragon, yeah.
And so I didn't realize that when the TSR at one point had a Tolkien scholar on the payroll.
Wow.
Not intentionally. He just, happened to be a Tolkien scholar and they get a job there.
But
crazy. The reason I bring it up is because they were describing how when he was going to college at someplace in Wisconsin, I forget which school, has Tolkien's original works, a lot of his original papers there, and how people just thought it was a waste of time, and they were just like, "Oh, look at this junk that's laying somewhere." And of course, now, thankfully they preserved it anyway. But just how the attitudes change.
Right.
So this is all up on a site. It says includes photos, audio clips, and even a draft manuscript of something I'm going to terribly mispronounce: the homecoming of Bjornoth Bjorthelm's son, offering a broader view of his life and literary legacy. So great stuff to see.
Wow.
All right, let's move on.
All right, next story. This is funny. Hey, and David in the chat room had mentioned about Smaug's treasure look like cheese. Well, David, there's your cheese. The home of TSR is now a cheese store.
But one home.
One home. Yes, one home. The Dungeon Hobby Shop Museum is now going to be selling cheese.
Yes. Now, to be clear, the people involved with that will not be selling the cheese.
No.
Yeah. So,
although they are cheesy.
Do we all know our background on this one?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty well read in. Yeah. I don't know what you want to tell the viewers.
Well, I don't think we have to retread the whole thing. But basically, the important thing is which house this is, right? So, Pat, I'll leave it to you to describe of the many different homes of TSR what this one was.
Okay, this was a zoned for dual use residential house, essentially. And it's about a block away from Gary Gygax's house on 330 Center Street. And yeah, 723 Williams was the first building that had offices at TSR. TSR was originally housed at Don Kay's place. And when he passed away, temporarily moved to Gary's place. But then when the Blooms brought in sort of that second burst of financing and sales were going well, they moved into 723 William Street. And it remained with TSR. I'm not sure whether it stuck around through Sheridan Springs or not, but I know Tim Kask stayed in this building with Dragon Magazine while they were in the Hotel Claire building downtown. So
Didn't know that.
It became the home of TSR Publications for a little while because they didn't have room to move everybody into the Hotel Claire. And for a while, it was also the upstairs is where they would give new employees a place to stay until they found a place of their own. So
which
you
is
had
so
Tim,
cool.
you had Tim and the Dragon staff downstairs, and there was no way to separate these things. So Tim would get frustrated because people are tromping through his office. And
I can see it now.
You can imagine the kind of swearing and shouting you do about that.
Right. Are you done yet?
Yeah. So, I mean, to run the whole business out of that place and have a hobby shop, I mean, you got these amazing artists bunking upstairs and people are playing games, buying games. Yeah, it's mind blowing how much brilliance was in this little place for that period of time.
Imagine at some point, like you said, there was customers coming in and out of the hobby shop downstairs. You have maybe Donald Sutherland sitting upstairs, working.
Or Dave even.
Right. Dave Sutherland. It'd be really interesting if you had Donald Sutherland.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, he's upstairs smoking weed on hiatus from Animal House.
What's with the negative waves, man?
I don't think Tramp was ever an in-house artist, right? He was always just freelancing.
Oh no, I believe he was.
Was he?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't want to talk out of school, but I believe he was a full payroll guy.
Okay, so whoever you had these artists up there, Gary would have had his office there. Maybe Brian Bloom would be up there.
Yep, for sure.
All just trying to kind of trip over each other. And so it's a very important piece of history. Because as you say, they moved to Hotel Claire and then to Sheridan Springs, then to a bigger Sheridan Springs. But a few years ago, owner of a tattoo shop and a smoke shop and a couple of other things from North Carolina bought this place with the idea of turning it into a D&D museum, which was a very laudable goal. I thought it was a great idea. And at the beginning, it was looking pretty good. But then things went south as they pretended to somehow be the original TSR, which was kind of weird. And long story short, they got sued by Wizards of the Coast. What was publicly known was that the lawsuit was topping $1 million. There was over $1 million there. They eventually settled. Obviously, because with settlements, they're not disclosed. So we don't know what they settled, what amount for. But this guy, this small-time businessman from North Carolina, ended up losing a lot of things. And one of the things he lost was the house that they had bought here. And there was a lot of speculation about what was going to happen to it. Would a gamer buy it? What would go on? Would Wizards buy it and turn it into something? None of that has happened. They were asking a ridiculous amount of money for it at one point. They originally said they wanted $5 million for it. Keep in mind, the house sold last time it sold for about $175.
Oh my God.
And I think from what Ernie had said, it was in need of a huge amount of updating. That there were a lot of things in terms of the wiring and other like real essentials that needed work. So,
and to their credit, I think they did do some improvements to the.
Oh yeah, look, the pictures look great.
Yeah. I stopped by and everything. At it. When they were doing it, it was fine. It looked probably better than it had back in the day.
Sure.
But eventually they dropped the price to something more reasonable. I think it sold for a price around $300,000, which is pretty market price. Didn't have any adjustment for its history. And the folks who bought it, they're keeping it a commercial space, but apparently they're gutting it and renovating it, and it's already brown. They've already painted it brown. Probably put new siding on it, because I think that was just vinyl siding on before. And it's a cheese shop. So unfortunately, the owners don't have any interest in the history of what it was, which is a shame, but glad to see that at least it's going to not get razed to the ground or anything.
Yeah, I think one of the good things about it, if you're looking for a bright side, is that it will be a place where as a citizen off the street, you can walk in, whatever, buy cheese, shop for cheese, whatever you're doing, and be in the building. If it were like, say, a real estate office or something, that happens a lot of the time. The dual zone, things that are zone dual use end up being a realtor's office or a law office or something. And as a Joe citizen, you can't just walk in off the street and look around. But because it's a store, you can stand in there and imagine and think about the history of it. It's accessible to the public, I guess.
Yeah, and if the cheese shop owners get enough nerds wandering in and out, maybe they'll start selling some D20 shaped cheese or something.
Yeah, see, I was just thinking that, like they could have some kind of gelatinous cheese or something. I don't know.
But you have to get Lou Zocchi to make sure there are no voids in the cheese that will disrupt the faithful rolling of the die.
The cheese rolls true. Right. But it's a shame. It's a good thing that it's not being run by anybody who's actively harming the name, which is good.
Right.
To your point, that probably can go in there. 330 Center Street, which is Gary's home, is still in the same hands it was all along, same owner. And so I know Paul Stormberg still goes in and runs events during GaryCon, so hopefully that'll stay that way. And who knows, maybe someday somebody will buy the Hotel Claire and make that a museum.
That would be pretty cool. Yeah, that'd be kind of expensive. It's unfortunate, really, that these places weren't bought. Now, Yolanda Frontani, who owns 330 Center Street, and I made the mistake. I pronounced her name Frontani in the director's commentary. It's Frontani. But anyway, Yolanda, who bought 330 Center Street, bought it before Lake Geneva, I think, had really Lake Geneva's had a real resurgence. When we shot the documentary, there was a Welcome to Lake Geneva sign that had kind of fallen down. Like the top board of it had slipped down. It was a perfect picture to depict, this town slightly in decline. But it's come raging back. Property values are way up. It's doing really well. And I think it's going to be harder. I guess I'm saying there was a sweet spot in there where people really could have come in and bought these places and done the magical things with them.
Yeah. Now, I will say to the cities or the towns, I don't know what to call it, a city or a town, but to their credit, the Lake Geneva Museum, the official one, is great. If you go in there, they've actually recreated an entire street scene from, I don't know, the 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah, very cool.
It feels like you're walking down a street in Lake Geneva back in the day. And they've got a dedicated D&D exhibit, which they've done a wonderful job with. So
it's very cool.
It's good to know that there are legitimate, actual curators, that there is a museum in Lake Geneva you can go to.
Yeah. The one, I wouldn't call it a criticism, but I guess a wish that I would have would be that the museum have actual artifacts from the company and from Gary's life, as opposed to just product. Gosh, how amazing would it be to see anything of Gary, his glasses. I mean, anything of Gary's would be fantastic in there. And that's what you see in any museum dedicated to somebody like Hemingway or Steinbeck or whatever. It's like, wow, here's his briefcase, here's his pen, and I think it wouldn't take much, but there was something slightly wanting about it being so much of things you can buy on eBay. Essentially, I mean, beautiful versions of those things, high quality copies.
The one thing they have at the Lake Geneva Museum is they do have the stained glass from the hobby shop.
Right, which is very cool.
Which is nice.
Yeah, that kind of organic.
And this one, this hobby shop dungeon, this for-profit one that was temporarily in this house, it was the same thing. It was just stuff you could buy.
Right.
There's a number of people who are doing museums like that. We talked about some a few weeks ago that's happening down in Florida. But have you been to different presidential libraries, for example?
I have not, no.
There's a great one. Oh my gosh, I hope I'm not getting this wrong. I believe Eisenhower's presidential library is in Kansas. Mm-hmm. And if it's the one, I'm pretty sure it's the one I'm thinking of. And what they did was they recreated several rooms from his childhood home and another room from his home after he was president, and did exactly what you're saying. They kind of set out scenes of this is what it would have looked like. This is his glasses. This is his pipe or whatever. And 330 Center Street could be good for that. Just plexiglass off a couple of rooms and say,
It would be-
here's where Gary sat on the couch while everybody made a lot of noise and he was trying to write.
And
Right.
and they could do what some museums do. They wouldn't even have to purchase all these really expensive things if they were behind glass and protected and could be responsible for them, not nothing happening to them. I'm sure there are people that would donate them for use, not like to keep, but for like display at a museum, because some people have stuff in their private collection and nobody ever gets to see it, and it would be kind of cool, especially if it said, such and such artifact on loan by such,
Yeah.
Well, Frank,
100%.
I believe Frank still has Gary's desk. He always had it
Yes.
at his house at the Franken parties.
Right.
Mhm.
So there is something that's very important.
Right. Yeah, it's. I'm not sure. Is that the William Street era desk?
I think so, because
Yeah.
it didn't look like the sort of desk he would have had later.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's pretty nice. It's big and
Mhm.
oak or whatever it's made of. Yeah.
Oh no, the one that Frank has, it's not like a partner's desk. It's not that big.
Right.
It's
Isn't
I
I
don't
thought
think
it was pretty big. It seems to me like it was 6 feet anyway. No.
maybe I'm misremembering it.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel like it seemed like the sort of thing he would have had, at Sheridan Springs, or certainly not
Right.
in Vitor's ranch or whatever.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But
Hollywood place.
hopefully we'll see what happens. It's got to happen at some point soon. There's got to be a proper museum put together.
Yeah. I gotta say, it does break my heart a little bit when every time I see something of Gary's for sale.
Yeah.
Like listed for sale on eBay. I think that, there's already so much lost or scattered to the four winds. And I think every time there's another thing, I think, why, there's gotta be a way. Even his personal books, like a monster manual that's just a beautiful copy that they have in the museum. I would rather see a beat up one that was Gary's. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's like, wow, Gary's hands and how.
Well, I was just talking to somebody. So I'm going out to a game convention in Dublin next month. And so I was talking to somebody in Ireland who's going to be there and who happens to be a Top Secret fan. And he said, I have Gary's personal copy of Top Secret.
What?
It's in Ireland. Why is it in Ireland?
Right.
Wow.
What happened?
Is he going to bring it so you can see it?
I'm trying to get him to, but
Okay.
he does or not.
It's like it was on the Titanic, and the Titanic went down. The Carpathia came,
Yeah.
and the Top Secret copy was transferred by lifeboat to the Carpathia.
Well, it is. I do worry about that because with so many things in private collections, what happens when collectors pass away if the people in their lives don't know enough about what they were collecting and why they had it?
Yeah.
We're very lucky that there's people like Bill Meinhardt out there.
Right.
But, not everybody's a Bill Meinhardt.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah.
All right, let's go on to the next one.
Yeah, let's do this quick because I want to get to
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I do
guys.
too. No, that's cool. I do too. So go ahead, Jason.
Okay, sure. There's a new Blood Bowl coming out. This is amazing. I love Blood Bowl. It's one of the most fun games in the world, according to me. I have played every edition. I am terrible at every edition. If anybody wants to win a game of Blood Bowl, play against me. But yeah, so they have they're calling it the third season edition, which is I don't actually know if it went out of print again. Blood Bowl, well, I mean, Games Workshop in general, or just there's this history of bringing it out, taking it off the market for a long time, bringing it back, taking it off again. So it's kind of unreliable, but for whatever reason, they are finding it to be successful. Happy to see that. So what we've got
Isn't
now,
that the manufactured scarcity, the artificial scarcity model where you make the price higher if you say, it's only limited time and then it's gone.
Yeah,
And then,
it's a Warhammer thing to do, I guess. I've never really understood the whole Warhammer economy. Somehow they've managed to be a staple of shopping malls, and
yes,
this huge thing, which is wonderful. If anybody's ever accidentally walked by one and looked for too long and had them drag you in to play a quick game,
right. Yeah, I owned a game store for a while in my hometown,
Oh, really?
and yeah, from like 2004 to 2007,
No, which
and
town is this?
this is Dayton, Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah, Kettering, Wexford Hill Hobbies was the name of the store, and I loved it. I could talk for an hour about that, but I had a dealer, like a store owner's look at what it was like dealing with Games Workshop, and it wasn't fun. I think Diamond Comics and Games Workshop were my two biggest headaches as far as where to get the stuff.
What was it like dealing
Yeah,
with them?
the discount was horrible.
Mhm.
You know that, so they shave 20% of your margin right away with their tough discount.
Did they
And then
go
you-
through a separate distributor, or were they their own distributor?
Yeah, exclusively had to order from them. You
Right.
couldn't get it anywhere else. And I believe if you got it anywhere else, you might get like whatever, you lose your special status or something like that. Yeah, it was tough. I just felt like they were making it hard, you know. So from that perspective, I just have, I guess I'm just kind of echoing your sentiment here about how they work.
They're very capricious, it seems.
Yeah.
You know, but it's surprising to me that somehow there's these two properties that are evergreen in terms of they seem to always have an audience and always be selling, and that's Magic the Gathering and Warhammer.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm just grateful that that there is a miniatures company that is somehow super popular.
Oh,
That's crazy.
this is just a piece of trivia, but a really annoying thing that they would do is they would come out with something new, some new model, and they would reuse a SKU that they had used on like something from 6 or 7 years back or something like that. So if you had any old stock that was still sitting around on your shelves, your point of sale system would get very confused, and you'd have to dig up the old stuff and like reprice it. And
that's so weird. Why would they do that?
There are a lot of numbers available in the world. You know, you would
Yeah.
you would think that there would. I mean, Social Security numbers haven't run out so far on people.
Yeah.
I have no idea what they're thinking.
Wow. I mean, in our case, we have to deal with the SKUs. So for anybody who doesn't know, SKU, it says, I don't know what it stands for, but it's your number that identifies a product, right? It's a unique number that identifies a product. So we have to deal with what our fulfillment house uses. But for our own internal SKUs, we've adopted the factory records model, which is, do you know Factory Records from Manchester, Joy Division and Happy Mondays?
Okay, sure.
And they had a habit of, they would just take everything and put a fact number on it, FACT for factory, and then they would just number them. Everything they did, if they threw a party, it would get a SKU. If they had a poster, it would get a SKU. When Tony Wilson, the founder of Factory Records, died, his coffin got a SKU.
It's awesome.
Beep.
So we just do that. We just do SOL, and everything we do, we just run the numbers up, and hopefully someday there will be like a Sol 1000 or 10,000. But
yeah,
I can't imagine reusing a number. That's silly.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. And I don't know if I'm confusing the SKU and the UPC code. Are those the same thing?
No.
Right. Okay. It might have been the UPCs that they were reusing.
Okay, that would make sense because you have to pay for those.
Right, but what, $100? I don't know. A really small amount of money, but
no,
it might have been the UPC codes.
Yeah.
Still, though, I mean, come on.
Here we've got Blood Bowl coming out again. There's going to be a new core box with two new teams, the Bretonnians and the Tomb Kings. And I'm assuming that that's the Tomb King we see in the background of this picture right now, kind of looking like Eddie from Iron Maiden.
And the Bretonnians are probably the guy with the deer on his head, because that looks like, I don't know why, to me, that looks like Bretonnians.
Yeah, kind of sort of the old gods of the Britons, of the Welsh or whatever. Says the mechanics have been refined for clarity, which they always say. It's never true. With new status markers and ball tokens, which that's good to hear. Status markers, I'd like, that's actually something that's a little tough with Blood Bowl, is keeping track of everybody's status. It is technically the 7th edition since the original in 1986, and probably just going to be a lot more Blood Bowl fun like it always is. So even though I don't have a Blood Bowl league here in my town to play with, I'm going to buy it because like I always do.
No, look, I'll bring it to the convention. I'll play it with you. I've never actually had a chance to play it.
It is so much fun,
and I've wanted to. I've wanted to forever to play it. but I've just never gotten around to it.
And what would you say, in a nutshell, is the characteristic of it that makes it so fun?
Gosh, that's a good question because, well, so first of all, in maybe a non-geek sort of way, I actually do really like American football. I have since I was a kid. I think it's a lot of fun. It's a great strategy game. And so I think it translates well to the tabletop. So there's a certain aspect of just, it's fun to play football with miniatures. But then because it's the Warhammer universe, it's fantasy football, which means that you've got spells, you've got all kinds of ways to rip people's heads off and everything else.
Nice.
I think one of the things that appeals is it uses sort of a programmed movement trope, which it's more strategy than chance, which is appealing to people. But there's just enough chance in there to make you throw your dice across the room. And I just think it's when you get a really good hit on somebody, or when you get RPG Sean says, I like the vibrating metal field version of football tabletop.
Nice.
It does kind of remind me of that, though. I love that stuff when I was a kid. Yeah, I think what it makes it appeal to people so much is that it's lighthearted, it's fast, you can play a game pretty quickly. It's properly competitive, and it just lets you blow off a little steam. And the figures are gorgeous.
Yeah,
and they're fun to paint. Yeah, I don't know what it is. There's been a lot of copies of it. There's been a lot of people that have tried to capture that same magic in a bottle, and other companies have made fun things. But Blood Bowl, it's the original, and it's still the most fun.
Hey guys, does it feel like when you look at this box, does that feel like Christmas to you? It does to me. I don't know why. It feels like Christmas to me.
Oh, I assumed that. Is that not the intention?
Well,
I don't know.
It feels like wearing one of the reindeer's severed heads on top of his helmet.
Right.
It does.
With Christmas bells on.
Yeah. Those Christmas lights on the collar. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm feeling Christmas.
So it's not that's not subtle. Yeah.
No, you're right. Good one. All right.
Let's get to the main event here.
Dun, 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 dun. All right. So there is, I should have had my box to hold up in front of me. Pat,
you should have. Damn it.
Do I have, gosh, I don't know if I have one within arm's reach.
I saw your poster on the wall over there.
I'll run and grab it in between questions because it's sitting in the kitchen over there.
Okay.
All right. So now there is a new documentary called Dreams in Gary's Basement. First, there have been so many people who have been made sort of attempts to get a documentary out there. Is this the first one that's actually shipped of anybody's projects?
Well, I guess it depends on how you're defining.
Well, I'm not counting the Dave Arneson one.
Right. Well, Eye of the Beholder, which was about the art of Dungeons and Dragons, shipped before ours. That's Brian Stillman's movie. It's really well respected. But yeah, otherwise, I think yeah. Good. So in terms of the story of TSR and Gary, this is the first one.
And I've been privileged enough to get to see some of the versions of the other Dungeons and Dragons documentary that was originally going to come out by different people. And they did a great job. Unfortunately, don't think it'll ever see the light of day. But the thing is, I say that in the sense of making a comparison here. So the first thing that I saw was, it wasn't The Great Kingdom, it was the other one.
D&D, a documentary? Isn't that what it was called?
I think it was just called that. Yeah. I think it was just called that. And I was impressed by it. It was such great filmmaking, such great interviewing, all that kind of stuff. And I thought, okay, this is really good. Nobody's going to top this. And then I'm leading up to the fact that, yeah, you did.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Topped it.
Thank you.
It's I'm going to embarrass you a little bit, but I think it's a masterpiece.
Oh, thank you. Wow. That means a lot coming from you.
Yeah, because
the Gygax magazine publisher. What are you kidding me?
Oh, thanks. I'm very judgy, so I pick on things that I don't like. I don't know if anybody heard me last week telling everybody just how terrible Paizo's graphic design was, for example. But
so you're a tough audience.
I'm a tough audience. I'm hard to please. This is I'm going to let you characterize everything that's in it, but I'm just going to talk about the physical object that we have here. We're looking at a Blu-ray set.
Yes.
Does everybody get the set, or I didn't get a deluxe version, did I? Everybody gets all the different discs?
No, well, there's just the feature, the main feature available as well. So you can buy
Oh,
just the individual movie,
okay.
or the set.
Okay, I bought
Um,
the deluxe family pack. If
right.
you
Yeah.
get this,
6 discs.
if you get the super pack, it's got hours of behind the scenes interviews with everybody. Um, if you already know the history of D&D, it's a great, more in-depth chance to see some of these things. And there was footage I'd never seen before. I thought I'd seen everything as I watched, Anthony making his and stuff like that. But no, there's stuff I'd never seen before, photos I'd never seen before, insights I'd never seen before. Um, so it's out, and you made it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I was just going to say we're doing a hybrid distribution model. So we only just a couple of months ago fulfilled the last of the Kickstarter backers who got the box set,
yeah.
and the rest of distribution is kind of coming along incrementally. So it's going to be increasingly visible, but you can get it right now on rpghistory.net if you want to just buy it streaming, or go to our Kickstarter page and click the button, and that'll take you to Backer Kit, and you can buy it on the store there. So it's kind of it's still under the radar a little bit, but definitely publicly available.
Well, let's start with the history of you making this, because
Yeah.
I know you've been working on this for things like this don't happen quickly.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about the origins of this. What was the genesis of this whole project? And I'm going to listen as I go and grab a copy of the box.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it started, actually, it might have started with a call to Jason. And I'm saying this now as I'm looking at an empty screen there while
he can hear you, and he's got his speakers.
Okay. Yeah, but I was playing in Satine Phoenix's celebrity D&D games, and when this documentary kind of became talk among me and my colleagues, she told me to call you, Jason.
Oh, right.
And so you were, I think, Satine was probably the first person I talked to seriously about it. And then she, being the super connected that she is, referred me to you. And then you kind of, because I've always been a player, an enthusiast, but I wasn't really plugged into the community as far as conventions and all the the old heads who were the creators of the game and stuff like that. And you were the one who introduced me to Luke or kind of give me a breakdown of the whole world there. So, but yeah, I actually just talked to Alex McCrease from Autark about this a couple of weeks ago. And I had when he was running Defy Media, we were going to do a documentary that was kind of like Playing at the World. Just when Playing at the World came out, I was a huge fan. Alex was a huge fan. And so we were going to do kind of a cultural history thing that spanned the whole gamut, going back to Roman times or whatever. But it became evident pretty quickly that it was a Gary story. Yeah. Like as a filmmaker and a storyteller, I saw a hero's journey in Gary's life that was just very concise and wonderful. And so after having done a couple of interviews, we sort of restructured it. I rebuilt the structure of it to talk about Gary. But yeah, that was 2015, so it's 10 years now.
Yeah.
And Defy Media ended up kind of splitting, or there was a lot of trouble over there. And so we couldn't do it with them, and I ended up kind of financing it ourselves, out of pocket and with Kickstarter, and just gradually accumulated interviews. We went to Gary Con and grabbed everybody that we could, and I built it as we went, which is actually the best way to do it.
The interviews that you have in here, they look like they were all done around the same time. What year?
Yeah, they're a little bit staggered, but I think 2016. Was a big year, and I think that's when we talked to Frank and to Dave Wesley, and
Dave looks really young in his.
Yeah, he does. Kind of a hawk-eyed former military guy, very compelling character. Dave is.
Oh, you could just let him talk and have a 5-hour piece.
I would love that. I would love to sit down with Dave Wesley. Maybe sometime in the future, but.
Just real quick,
there were 2 years. that we did that. 16 and 17 were the 2 big years at GaryCon. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just real quick. You're talking about Dave Wesley, because one of the things that came up, I took note of. I was watching one of the extra things with John Peterson, and you were talking about Dave Wesley and how, he was had some military experience and stuff, and he had you mentioned that he'd worked at AP.
Major.
Yeah, he worked at APG, right? Aberdeen Proving Grounds. Well, that's where I work. Like, that's where I go every day.
No
So I just wanted to bring that up.
Wow, your gaming cred is off the charts between drafting and working at the Proving Grounds.
Yeah.
That's
I'm an engineer working for the Chem Bio Center at APG.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
I love I remember being on the road as a comedian and going to the Proving Grounds, and I could not. I had to leave. I had to hit the road and get back. But I'm like, oh my God, I wish I could just scour every inch of this museum. So amazing.
Yeah.
Next time.
Yeah.
No, the museum's gone. They moved it.
Oh.
What?
Yep.
What?
The museum's gone.
Oh,
That's a shame.
Yes.
Well, I had
But
my
yeah,
chance.
no, people still call him Major Wesley.
Yep.
Mhm.
So, and he, like I said, Major Wesley could have an entire documentary to himself.
Absolutely.
I think it's fair to say that he is the creator of role playing. I would give him that title.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
It's impossible to ever say who invented something or what was first. Look at the argument over who invented television or who invented the light bulb or anything like that.
Yeah.
But there's a relatively straight line you can draw in terms of, and I'll let you lay out kind of the different stages of what caused role playing to even exist in the first place.
Right. Well, I actually, it's funny that makes me feel a little bit nervous because I don't have the encyclopedic John Peterson knowledge of it. And what's crazy too is when I feel like I knew more 5 years ago than I do now because it's like a perishable knowledge,
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
It's like you get involved in promoting and distribution and all that stuff. And it's like, wait a second, people ask me a question, I'm like, wait a second. But
with our own game with Top Secret, that I'm 1/3 of the authorship on that, and I keep having to turn to Scott Congable to tell me the rules.
Right. There is a lot there. There's a lot.
The way I would characterize it is, if we look for the first time anybody ever did role playing, we're not going to find that. We're going to have to go look at Thespis or whatever the Greek guy's name was, actor, right? But the first time that somebody actually said, I'm going to make a game where you're playing a role in the game, I think it's relatively fair to say Dave Wesley with Braunstein.
Yeah.
Which is
Braunstein.
Braunstein.
Yeah.
No, it's not Brown.
It is, yeah.
Wait, no, he hits you on that so hard when you say
it's the other way around though. Yeah,
which is the right way to say it?
Braunstein. So he's like brown like the color because he was saying specifically you got black Moor, you got Gray Hawk, and you got Braunstein.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm remembering it wrong because I said it the wrong way, and he hit me with that, and he must have hit me with it that way then.
Right.
So with Braunstein, it was a little bit similar to diplomacy in the sense that it's very loose, rules, whatever. But the point is, you're a group of people in a specific scenario, which is oh my gosh, I know it's a
village, right?
It's a town that's in the middle of a Napoleonic era war,
right?
And I forget who's invading. The Prussians, I think, are invading.
I'm not sure. Yes. Yeah.
And the thing is, he runs it to this day. I mean, I've played it with him, which I think is one of the greatest moments of my gaming life, is getting to play Braunstein with Major Wesley. But he essentially, created this idea of a game where you all just take on a character as if you were in a play, but you actually have your own agency, and it has a referee.
Right.
It has somebody who's going to adjudicate what actually happens. And so you take that idea and you go to Dave Arneson, who now combines that with wargaming and takes it to the level of actually having a more rules structured version of it, where you roll some dice and actually see what happens. And then you take it to the next level, which is Gary Gygax actually writing the rules down and turning it into something that could actually be played without having Gary or Dave at the table to figure it out for you.
Right.
But it really goes back to Major Wesley.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, watching the if you watch the John Peterson extended interview, there's like 90 minutes of him just like a machine gun land on the facts of the history. It's fantastic. That guy's brain is off the charts.
I
But
haven't watched his yet,
Yeah.
of the extended interviews, but
yeah, it's
So-
essentially playing at the world, you know, kind
So
of
so I-
sequentially. But the point I wanted to make was that with Kriegspiel, you had a lot of agency that was given to you by the referee. There were things you could do that would never fit in a rule book. But with Wesley, anything can be attempted mechanic just completely opened up to like anything you want to try that's within the realm of possibility. You can do that. And then he integrates that into the running narrative of the world.
Mhm.
And that wide open play style is what was completely unique, I think, in terms of like marking it as an innovation.
Yeah, I think you just said the phrase, which is anything can be attempted.
Yeah,
That was
that's
the
the John Peterson phrase. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And so, and by the way, here is for anybody who wants to see. This is the Blu-ray six disc set.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. There's loads of things in here, but the one thing for me that was difficult was I didn't have a Blu-ray player.
Oh
so
no.
it involved a little bit of technological juggling before I was able to get it all in my machine. So I haven't seen John Peterson's extended
Okay.
interview yet, but I feel like I've probably lived it with him enough times.
Right.
John and I have been friends, for longer than I can remember now.
He's a great guy, and it's such a huge help with this project. We sat down with him twice, and I think both times it was like 8 hours of interview, and he was just such a supporter. Yeah, very grateful to John.
If there's no John Peterson, there's no proper current history of the game. I
Right,
think.
100%.
A lot of people have done amazing work. Shannon Appelkline has done great work. A lot of other people have too, but John is the most I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. Just
prolific, detail-oriented.
thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the gold standard of a grown-up academic treatment of the subject matter.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
hey, it's on
then-
the MIT Press.
Yes, yeah.
It's very legit, very legit.
So
as much, yeah, as
so-
legit as you can get.
if you buy if you're interested, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh great, I want to get this, right, and you buy it, I would highly suggest, because of getting the complete set.
Yeah.
I mean, simply for the John Peterson one, because that was one of the few that I got to watch in time, because I just got these from Jason recently, just to watch for this show, was the John Peterson interview. And it is just, you're right, he's like a machine gun. He's just like fact, and he just draws this nice straight line, and you don't get lost or confused. He doesn't
Right.
trip over his words, not
Yeah.
a single friggin' word. And I'm like, this is either really good editing or he's just a machine. And
Yeah,
it was pretty
with
amazing.
him, it's the latter. There was a
Yeah,
lot
okay.
of good editing with other people. With him, it's like, and it reminds me honestly of Steve Jobs. And I don't know if you've seen interviews or like when he's given a lecture or a
Probably
presentation.
watched all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, somebody asks a tough question, and he sits and he just thinks, and then boom, it's like this wise and brilliant gold just comes out. And John Peterson would do that. We'd ask him a question, and he would sort of gather himself for a second, and then focus, and then just go. Is absolutely incredible. And what's nice too with John is that it's not devoid of emotion. There's like enthusiasm, and the sort of the emotional spectrum is expressed in a way that really helped the film. When you're trying to express a certain tone in a scene, he just gave us amazing stuff. And honestly, I think without John, we probably would have had to have a narrator, which is death to a documentary. And anytime I hear a narrator's voice in a documentary, I just almost right away will turn it off. It just bothers me so much. But
That's a good point. So
yeah.
I don't know. I've never been analytic enough when looking at documentaries to think about what makes one good or bad. I've watched so many, and I've loved a lot and hated a lot, or just been bored by some. But what makes a documentary work?
Yeah. Well,
I'm asking, what makes it work?
Yeah. Ultimately, my feeling is that a compelling subject matter you have to start with, and then it is strict adherence to storytelling structure. I don't know if you've ever read the book Save the Cat. It's this really fun book by Blake Snyder about the structure of movies and all the beats that a movie really has to hit, and 9 times out of
What's that thing
10,
called? The thing that's got the little, you know, inciting movement, and there's a person's name attached to it. It's like a
right? Well, I mean, gosh, yeah, I don't know. I
I
don't
was
know
just wondering,
the.
is it that, you know, is it that storytelling structure that you also use that in a documentary?
Yeah, is it McKee? There's a guy who wrote a much more serious book about
It's
screenwriting,
the
but the
oh,
Blake Snyder beat sheet is the the thing that I kind of refer to.
mhm.
Yeah, you can look it up, but
I'm
but
looking at it as we go right now, trying to find out what the name of this thing is, but it looks like a little
yeah,
pyramid, and it
yeah.
follows a specific, you know, from Freytag or Freitag.
Okay, that sounds
Freitag.
familiar, but I'm
Yeah,
not
so
yeah.
exposition, inciting incident, climax, etc.
Right,
But
and that is
you do that too. It
all in
seems
there.
like.
Yes, I paid very close attention to that, and what is there's thesis, antithesis, synthesis.
Mhm.
Thesis is, okay, where is your character in the beginning? What world is he in? And then in Act Two, that they call it the break into two, he goes into an other world.
Mm.
There's this upside down world that's completely unfamiliar, and there's disorientation and all this crazy stuff. In the middle of the movie, there's the false victory, which means the hero has everything he thinks he wanted, but it's starting to turn dark and weird, or it's not as magical as he thought it would be. And in this movie, that's the James Dallas Egbert moment,
Okay.
right in the middle of the film. So it's like, wow, crazy, here comes all the money, this is so fun. But wait a minute, here's this kind of dark, weird thing that's happening. Maybe this is, and the game's getting too big for its britches, and then it's running out of control. And then in Act Three, where synthesis occurs, the two halves of the hero, essentially, the Act One half and the Act Two half, um, basically the naivete has merged itself with the wisdom, and you have a full human being
Huh.
Mhm.
who's in Act Three. That's the synthesis of the two worlds. And yeah, and scene structure is really important too. Having scenes that are timed properly. Every scene's about 2 minutes, and every scene has a structure of sequences within it. It's painstaking, and it should be invisible to the viewer if it's done properly. Where
Well, I didn't
the
think about any of this until you're saying it now.
yeah,
You know, as you're
it,
saying it now, I'm kind of understanding why it was that, because Peter and I sat down to watch it together, and it was just compelling. It was, if it was a book, it would be a page turner. It just
oh,
really
thank you.
did keep you just wanting to be glued to it. And now that you're saying it, I see why it's dragging the audience through it that way.
Mhm.
Yeah. There are people who say, "Oh, wow, I wish there had been more of this," or "Why didn't
Mhm.
you left this out? That's a huge omission." What?
Sure.
But the Buster Keaton had a great anecdote about this. He made incredible movies. He's considered a great
Yeah.
film artist in addition to being a comedian. And he had a chase scene where he ended up falling into a pond or something, and
Mhm.
there's a school of fish going by, and he pulls out, in the original cut, he pulls out a crossing guard sign and like waves the fish past, and then he like stops the fish, and then he gets out of the pond, and the chase continues. It was a hilarious scene, but in the screenings, he's like, "Wow, the audience doesn't want to be here. This is a chase scene. This
Mhm.
breaks the whole momentum." He could feel the audience losing their interest because they're invested in the story, even though this gag was great.
Mhm.
And so, you have to cut those things. And, for instance, I wanted to do a whole thing about dice. I wanted to do 2 minutes on dice because
Uh-huh.
dice are such a big deal in the game. But it was completely perpendicular to Gary's story, and it just didn't fit anywhere.
Right.
And, and certainly Gary, like I guess it'd be in Act Three when he has his creative renaissance. We talk about Cyborg Commando, and we talk about
Mhm.
Troll Lord Games, but there was a bunch of other stuff that he did that we just didn't have time for.
Mhm.
And had we stuck around and talked about all of the things that he did, then the audience would be getting impatient or bored,
Yes.
or so it's like, and maybe this is part of this is my stand-up comedy background, where I have,
Mhm.
you know as a stand-up, you have to be hypersensitive to pacing, and as soon as you start feeling like you're losing people, you got to cut and run, and you got to move on to the next thing. So
That
yeah,
makes me think of I don't know if you're a fan of Elmore Leonard, the writer.
no, I'm
Wrote
not familiar.
a lot of TV shows and movies have been made out of his stuff, like Be Cool and Get Shorty and Just.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice. Okay.
But I always love him as a writer because he's very he really is all focused on how do you not lose the person as you're going. And one of his
Right.
core rules of writing was he said he would read his work, and if any of it read like writing, he would change it.
Right.
Oh, okay.
You know, the moment he thought it felt like an author was writing, he would change it because he didn't want to lose them. You know,
Yeah.
and it's got to be hard
Yeah.
to lose this. What were you going to put in about the dice? What did you want to have about the dice?
Yeah, I mean, it was just about how James Lauder, for instance, talked about how they have a talismanic quality to them. You know, how they take on an otherworldly sort of importance. You know, you feel like they're just like with gambling, whatever, they're cursed or they're not cursed, or they're being friendly or not. And certainly the history of the dice, you know, the very fragile dice that it came out initially from
all those little soapy ones.
Creative Publications.
Yeah, Creative Publications, yes.
I'm sorry. I have a question. I want to follow up with this. So I got a question about dice too. So go ahead.
Yes, but it was that you know, the different kinds of dice, the evolution of dice, and you know, Luzaki and how he like literally made a science out of dice, and but yeah, it just did not. And certainly with the game itself too, all of the modules and the amazing stuff that was coming out, there was no time. I mean, we smashed all of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons into 2 minutes. I mean, literally. And
you're telling Gary's story,
right?
You're not telling the story of every publication that came out.
Correct. Yeah, that's a very key insight and kind of a North Star to hang on to. Yeah,
and I think it's what makes this work is because you're watching a human story. I would love to. I personally would watch a 2-hour documentary about dice.
I would too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I would too.
I don't think that's a $1 billion idea though.
I have this question about the dice though, because this again, I love dice just like everybody. I'm a dice, fanatic. So in the you said that in your documentary you mentioned that, or maybe this was in the extras, but it doesn't matter. You said that you had to order the dice. Like you bought the box set, the original box set, and it didn't come with any dice. You had to order these dice. So two things came to my mind that was just like, wait a minute. If these dice were like some special thing you had to order from some special place, you know, I can't imagine that anybody even knew these dice. Not anybody, but most people, your generic person would not even know that these kind of dice existed. Like there was the D6 is all anyone would ever recognize.
Correct. Yeah.
How did Gary know that these dice existed and he designed him and the others designed these games on these dice? Like where did these dice just come from into the world? You know, like
that's gosh, I don't want to talk too far out of school about it. I'm sure John Peterson actually has a whole video about it.
The first ones were not dice. They were educational aids.
Okay.
A company called Edmunds Scientific.
Yeah.
And I only have that always in my brain because I'm eternally searching for a set of Edmunds Scientific
policy. Those are just the 20s though. Wasn't that just 20-sided from the
Edmunds Scientific actually back in the 1960s they sold a set of platonic solids.
Oh, nice. Okay.
For high school kids to learn what platonic solids were. So of course there's no D10 because the D10 is not a platonic shape.
Right.
But it was all the other dice and not dice. It was just shapes. They didn't have numbers or anything. And that's but how I agree. How would Gary have known these existed?
It seems to me, if I remember right, that there were people in the UK who had stumbled upon them and written about them in their various fanzines, which then came to the United States.
Okay.
And Gary had read about, in particular, he read about the D20, I'm sure, in a UK fanzine.
It must have been some war gamers that said, here are more ways to get more interesting odds.
Yeah, it was probably in one of those newsletters. Like, what was it? Was it the General? What was the original, like some of those really old ones? The old wargaming like newsletters and stuff.
Avalon Hill, the General was the first regularly published one. I don't know if there were fanzines in existence around wargaming at the time. I don't know.
I mean, I could just see somebody writing about it in there, and then like Gary seeing it and being like, "Oh, I got to get a set of those," and then was just like, "Oh, let's do this." These are great.
Mentioned Luzaki. Is it Zachi or Zaki?
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure. I always said Zaki.
I'll go with Zaki.
Okay.
Pat mentioned Lou Zaki, who's known to gamers now mostly for his dice,
Right.
for making these very, very true rolling dice.
I have a set of them.
But so the Avalon Hill, the General, was their house organ. It was essentially their way for Tom. I forgot Tom's name. The second guy to run Avalon Hill.
No, I'm not. Yeah,
Whatever his name is, the guy who took over Avalon Hill after they had their first financial troubles, and it was basically just him. He had to keep this company going by himself, and so he said, "I'm going to start a zine, and I'm going to have all the fans write it for me."
Okay.
So he said, "Here's your big opportunity. You can be an editor for my magazine, and I won't pay you." And if you pick up the very first issue of the Avalon Hill's The General from, I don't know, 1965 or something like that, I'm probably wrong. In it, each one of the regional editors introduced, the Northeastern editor, Southeastern editor, etc. And they're all high school kids who are 16, 17 years old, and they're the editors, except there's one guy who is a 23-year-old in the Air Force, a fellow named Lou Zaki.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where he started out, was in writing and being one of the editors for the General.
Okay.
So I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere in there he was already thinking about dice.
Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, all of these mathematical people, there's only so much you can do with a D6 without getting pretty cumbersome with tables and whatnot. But I mean, the D6 is highly. I mean, in original D&D, don't all weapons do a D6 damage?
Yeah,
and
all the
yes,
same.
so you're kind of going back to chainmail in some ways. And I was just reading Rob Kuntz was talking about, there they are, the Creative Publications dice. Yeah, Rob Kuntz was talking just in the last couple of days on X about how it was his idea for the different classes to have different dice for their hit dice.
How was it?
Okay.
Yeah, which I thought was I hadn't known that.
You'll notice on the back of the box here, there's no D10.
Right.
Oh yeah, I didn't notice that. Okay.
Because it's not a platonic solid. To get a D10, you would, and that's why you see this thing that looks like a D20, wherever my finger is. The thing that looks like a D20, it's actually only numbered 0 through 9 twice.
Right. Right. Wow.
Man,
we almost did a 2-hour piece on dice, didn't we?
Yeah, there we did it.
Gary, but that's what it's about.
I don't have to regret that anymore. We just did
it.
Yeah, we just did it. But I'm really interested in what the process looks like, because what we get to see by buying the Blu-ray set is we get to see a little bit behind the scenes with the interviews, but that's just the interviews. I really want to hear about the rest of the slog, what it really took to get the knowledge that you needed. How did you organize it? How did you bring it together? What's that like?
Well, I think, it started with a couple of interviews, and you start cutting scenes. And once we knew it was about Gary, I mapped out the whole movie essentially in terms of scenes or chapters. There's Lake Geneva is kind of a character in the movie. We'll get to spend time talking about that. And, Gary's entire childhood was jammed, like going from
You got to remind me, does your movie have the bit about him getting in the fight?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
No.
I read too many different parts of his life, so I don't want to say a part that's not in the movie.
Right? Yeah. I didn't talk about that. I didn't talk about his father passing away, which was a massively influential event in his life. But we just had 2 minutes to go from Gary was a baby to Gary is married with kids and living in Lake Geneva, and so and again, that's all the highly disciplined attention to pacing. But it's an iterative process where it's like, okay, so I've got these 50 different possible subject matters that'll be chapters and scenes in the film. And then some of them make it and some of them don't. And some of them get smushed together into one scene. But as you do interviews, you start categorizing things. It's like, oh, that would be great here. Or this is a perfect soundbite that would get us from this scene to this scene. And it's almost like if you have 10 Ming Dynasty vases and you smash them all and you mix up all the pieces and you got to build one out of all the broken pieces. You're building, and so it's like all of the disparate bits and pieces have to be assembled into this, this comprehensive work. But that we had done a number of interviews, and I built a trailer that was, I thought it was exciting to the point where it's like, wow, this is good enough. I really think we should do a Kickstarter. I think this really shows what we intend to do with the film. And then we did the Kickstarter and, raised $118,000. And then I was in hell because I had so much. I mean, the amount of work, it was like, the Eastern Front in World War II. It just opened up like a, like a horn. And so I under the gun of waiting backers, I'm finishing the film. I'm doing more interviews. I'm tracking down archival materials. And really with the archival stuff, you asked about that earlier. I only sought that on a need basis, where I'm building a scene. It's like, I really need this thing. I need something to, create a visual for what's being talked about.
And then I would go archivist that you were working with, somebody like Matt Shoemaker or anybody like that.
Yeah, Matt was very helpful. There were a number of things he provided for us, or at least, and in some cases he sent us things directly. In other cases he pointed us in the right direction. Great guy, and so grateful for his help. And it really is a community effort in that regard. There was Matt Shoemaker, Nathan Like. I don't know if you know him. He's
it's so funny.
Jason.
Nathan, I met Nathan at a Franken party one year, and it was when I was still doing my old podcast, and he was a kid at the time. I think he was like 17 or something.
Oh gosh.
He was just like, and it was just so weird to have this teenager come up and be like, "I listened to your podcast about first edition AD&D." I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
Why are you 7 feet tall at the age of 17?
You're right.
Yeah.
Hey, we have Jeff Talanian actually in the chat here.
Oh, sweet.
I want to back up for a second because you said about Rob's innovations here. So Jeffrey Talanian says, yes, that was Rob's innovation. Gary wanted to have the different dice for different monsters. Gary wanted to carry it over to AD&D for monsters, variable hit dice types. But the editor mistakenly retained D8 as the standard in the 77 monster.
Wow.
Yep.
Fascinating.
Now keep in mind here that Jeff worked with Gary a lot after in his post-TSR years. And so he worked in Castle Zaggig. And so Jeff says, when we were doing Castle Zaggig, we used his original intent with variable hit dice types for monsters, kobolds with a D4 all the way to giants using a D12.
Oh,
wow.
Cool. Very cool.
That's awesome. I had no idea. Yeah, that in some ways, actually, I think it's kind of elegant to have the monsters be all D8s. That there. I mean, there's certainly something. It's certainly easier, but that's interesting. Like the kobolds or the magic users.
I wondered about that back in the day. I'm like, why are they all the same?
Right. And you just scale the numbers up. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, Jeff gave us a great interview.
As you're going through all these things, you said it was. I forget what the metaphor you used for all the different things you were dealing with, but one of the hardest things, one of the best and the hardest things about doing a thing like this, to me, seems that on the one hand, Gary Gygax did kind of have a life that was very good for storytelling.
Yes.
He, as you say, he lived a hero's journey.
Yes.
But on the other hand, you have so many unreliable narrators throughout. You have so many, everybody has a different memory of everything that happened. And you're going to, if you have an incident where there were 3 people there, you have 5 versions of what happened.
Right.
How did you deal with that?
Well, the best way to describe it is I had to come to my understanding of the truth. And that, and I asked John Peterson a lot of times, I said, hey, I'm trying to suss this out. This guy says this, the other guy says this. Sometimes I don't try to pin it down at all factually. And other times I'll just present 2 different points of view and let and certainly where the Arneson thing was concerned, you hear, Dave Wesley talking about, the importance of Arneson, and Tim Kaska has a different, view of Arneson. And
it's really the archetypical difficulty in all of this. I feel like there have been enough histories written and biographies written, and now documentary, that I think we've seen all the different opinions on it. So you could probably create a fairly objective view of what actually happened. But as you're doing this film that, like you said, was it over a 10-year period, I think a lot of the quote unquote objective truth didn't really congeal until more recently, as we had more people
Right.
come out and start talking about things. So you
Yep.
had a difficult task there.
Right. Yeah. I don't think there are too many places where I felt like we had it wrong and had to go back and,
Mhm.
and fix something because of new information that came up. And that's one of the benefits, I think, of focusing on Gary's story as opposed to like a completist history.
Mhm.
Because it's not, it's about Gary and what he lived as opposed to the importance of the specific details. For instance, there's a lot of time compression. We kind of telling the story, hit the collapse in Hollywood, and then bothered about Dungeons and Dragons in 60 minutes. It seems, if you're watching the movie, it might seem like 85 is when things started to unravel, but as we know, it was a couple of years before then that they suffered their first loss and started having to cut people and all that stuff. Now, uh, we didn't say explicitly that, hey, this stuff all happened in 85, but in terms of the storytelling, you can't circle back and say, hey, technically this is this. You just got to keep that machine, kind of rolling. But yeah, there were things like, for instance, Dave Arneson and the Twin Cities gaming group. I wanted to pay them real homage. These are brilliant people. They're incredible innovators, a great group of guys, and I feel like we accomplished that. But again, it's like we're going from wargaming to role playing. Like the amount of historical ground you cover explaining the evolution of games in 2 or 3.5 minutes is just obscene. And the trick there was tell the story efficiently, but don't be incorrect. You can't be saying something that's not true, and so it all has to be technically true. So yeah, so that became hard. But and man, doing the Arneson Gygax lawsuits
Yeah.
was super tough because it's like, well, you got to be fair, and if you've read Game Wizards, you
I
know
was
that
just going to say that's the
yeah,
one place that I think that the lawsuits are most objectively handled.
right, yeah, and the truth of the matter, people want to say, oh, Gygax is a thief or whatever, Arneson was impossible or whatever it is. And the truth is, it was legally very complex. They both had excellent arguments going into court, and the copyright laws had recently changed, and there were some very complicated issues where copyright and joint ownership and all that kind of thing are concerned. And so, you can't blame anybody in some ways because it was just like a fair disagreement, and they both handled it. I mean, they both got very angry, as everyone does in a lawsuit, and,
Yeah.
and there was a bitterness and all that. But the disagreement was not one person being a jerk. It was like a legitimate, like a fair disagreement, for lack of a better expression,
I think you had two people who both were being very sincere in their personal points of view. I think they're
Right.
being very honest about what they thought, and it kind of came down to the almost a classic debate about what's more important, the idea or the execution.
Oh, yeah. That debate is so archetypal that it tells you more about someone's Jungian psychology when they tell
Mhm.
you who they side with than anything else.
Yeah,
Um,
and
and
legally,
and you get an underdog also and a company man, so
yeah.
there's the David and Goliath thing. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just saying. So, I mean, the legal side of it comes down to the fact that because game ideas and mechanics cannot be copyrighted,
Right.
that from a legal perspective, if it had literally been just Dave Arneson had an idea and Gary executed on it and made a game, legally, David would have had nothing. But he was lucky in a legal sense that he did have a few things that he created that were in there. So, for example, the fact that he drew a couple of monsters, and Gary decided to include them in the book. And the fact that he drew them meant that he executed on something.
Right.
So now, yes, he has some of the copyright, because
Well-
copyright doesn't ask, did you make 1% and they made 99, or was it 50-50? It just said, did you both work on it?
Right. And the other big thing is they had an agreement.
Yeah.
You know, so if there was no agreement and you're looking at it saying, okay, who did what? In the Writers Guild, you know, has very strict kind of understandings of who gets, you know, is like there's story by and based on a concept by, and all these sort of different delineations for how much a person contributed. But the fact that they had an agreement made it so that all the public domain aspects of like game mechanics kind of go out the window. This is the agreement. You know, we agreed we're going to make this game. We each get, you know,
Half.
yeah, right, right.
And then ultimately you get, you know, a decade down the line, and now the lawyers are arguing, what is D&D when you're talking about the royalties? Is this monster manual D&D? Is this other thing? You know, all those things.
Right. Yeah.
But from a Gary from a story of Gary perspective, from your film, I understand why this is Gary's story. You're not going to be able to then go off on a long tangent about the legal issues, you know,
Right. Yeah. Right.
or even what was happening in the Twin Cities.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
I wonder, you know, this is, I know when I just finish a project, this is the question I hate the most of, you know, are you going to do another thing? But, you know, especially if you just spent 10 years on this, but could you see yourself doing another person's story that was in this world, you know, whether it's Dave Arneson's story or somebody else's?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this, you know, I haven't talked really about this publicly, so it's maybe a scoop in some ways, but rpghistory.net, which is the site where you can buy the film streaming, is going to be a full channel. We're gonna have all of the extended interviews, and that's like Mike Bernard and Jeff Talanian and Jim Lauder, and those are going to be broken up into 20-25-minute episodes. So there's going to be a ton of stuff on there, and including new stuff. I mean, the first stuff we're going to roll out is all of this trove of interviews that we have for the film. But yeah, there are a lot of things that I want to explore, and a lot of interesting niches that may or may not support a full film. And I would definitely be open to the possibility of doing a film. You know, I learned so much doing this one. I feel in some ways like it'd be a waste not to do another one, because it's like, wow, you know, I've got all the bumps and bruises from my education. I may as well put that education, you know, to work. Yeah. But at the same time, the one thing I don't like about it is that there are 1,000 people on Twitter who say, "Oh yeah, I'm an RPG historian," you know, and some of them know far more than I do, and some of them just are reposting old Dragon magazine covers and calling themselves historians, you know. But one of the frustrations I had as from an archival standpoint with this movie is, like, for instance, the BBC footage of Gary talking about building a world. Yeah. We had got, you know, a friend of mine had gotten it from a friend who had been to, like, the Television and Radio Museum in the UK. Yeah. And so, like, wow, it's like nobody has seen this, or, you know, it hasn't been public at all. And so, you know, I got the fair use clearance from our attorneys and checked all the boxes, did everything correctly. And then the BBC ended up posting it on YouTube, and then it got ripped and shared and clipped, and, you know, so, like, this thing that I had, like, dug up, you know, based on connections and luck, just became everywhere, you know. And there are a number of things that are like that, where it's like, wow, this picture that I thought was so unique.
It out.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, it's like, in some ways, it's you just. That's a perfect way to put it, you know. But as a filmmaker, you don't have the luxury of just throwing it in there. You know, you have to, like, go through and get all of the proper legal clearances and pay the license fees. And I mean, I see stuff in people's videos. It's like, wow, I paid $2,000 to have that in my movie, and you just put it on YouTube. You just ripped it and put it on YouTube. You know, they didn't rip it from my film, but they ripped it from whatever the source was. You know. And so, in some ways, that makes it a real uphill battle, unless you're exploring something that is so niche that people haven't already, done all the heavy mining that there is to do there.
Well, there
And
were
so,
some
yeah,
scenes you had in there, especially very early ones with Gary. Because I forget where the original footage came from. There's some footage of Gary actually at one of the Horticultural Hall Gen Cons.
yeah, yeah.
And this was something I just thought was really interesting from a storytelling pacing perspective, the way that the shot comes in, and at first you think you're only going to get a photo of him, or you're going to get just a little, there's just almost a little movement. You're not going to get a whole thing. And then it turns into, here he is talking. And I just thought that kind of reveal was really effective.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I had to learn. And I'm not sure how far back to go in this story, but as an artist, I went from being a stand-up comedian, to an actor, to doing writing and directing, but always there was a circumstance where I had to ask somebody's permission. It's like, okay, I wrote a script. Will you, sir, please buy my script and put it on TV? Or look, I'm an actor. I'm a funny guy. Sir, will you please let me do a funny thing in your movie? And that's the audition, And I really found that editing was kind of the Rosetta Stone in terms of creating your own stuff. If you can edit, you can always find somebody to shoot, but if you can write and edit. And so in a nutshell, I had to learn how to edit. And that included building all those, newspaper graphics. And there's a lot of graphics in there that I just built myself.
Oh, really?
And I didn't do like Yoshi Vu, who's a 3D animator, did like that incredible player's handbook animation and like the Holmes box set, sort of almost like a Monty Python animation that he did with Red Dragon there. So there are people that's way above my pay grade.
Yeah,
but
still, I feel your pain. I know how painstaking it is. To put that
yeah. And I would actually love sometime to interview you, or like I'm so curious about Gygax magazine, because I know that you had a lot of great help, but you were also a one-man band in a lot of ways.
I can tell you about the amount of times that I had literally just walls all over the house plastered with things. I mean, it's putting a magazine together is such a ridiculous task that I don't think anybody should do it.
Oh, just ever.
I just don't think anybody should do it.
Yeah, I was thinking about that with this interview coming up. I thought, wow, when you did Gygax magazine, it was like right before the fifth edition just kind of exploded, and it became and then the pandemic just built on top of that. But I thought, where would Gygax magazine be today if it had just gone uninterrupted? Because it was so well executed. It was.
I'm always open if anybody's out there that has the actual drive in their belly to come in and bring this thing back. I talked about being open to that, but neither one of us has the time and energy to do it ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, you have to want it so bad.
Yeah,
that you're willing to really bleed out for it.
To be honest, if we were to do that, if we were like, yeah, okay, let's do this, it would be the only thing that we did.
Right.
But
yeah.
I would rather have somebody else. I mean, I'd let James Lauder do it. He would be perfect. he and I have talked about the pain of publishing before. That's how we first bonded, was just what a pain in the ass publishing is.
Right.
But for me, that was the third magazine that I ever published.
Oh gosh, I didn't know you had done 2 already. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'd done 2 before that. So it's in my blood. I honestly love magazines more than anything in the world, but it's not where I'm going to be these days.
Yeah, and that's like such a tragedy. And I mean, I'm not saying you're disappointing me. I'm saying that, like even doing this movie, I'm like, that sacrifice is too great. It's too great. It was too hard.
I think there's certain I don't want to say art forms, but mediums or whatever that just unfortunately are of their time, that the things that I really love and I wish it would still happen, but I don't know if they make sense in the world anymore. Magazines is one of them. And honestly, like sketch comedy shows is another one, because this was where you kind of had your first, made your mark. First was on Mad TV.
Yeah.
And I don't know if a show like that could really work anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, Saturday Night Live still exists through pure inertia.
Right. 100%.
Because nobody wants to shut it down.
Yeah. And I think that I mean, in some ways, you're competing against the whole internet,
Yeah.
and that even if you're doing a show that is written on Monday and performed on Saturday, you might be too late by Saturday. You know, it's like that's the pace at which things are moving.
Well, have you
And
seen where actually? So
yeah.
I don't know if you've seen, but the Mitchell and Webb show is coming back. So,
Gosh, I'm not familiar with that
oh,
one.
David Mitchell
Oh,
and
oh, sure, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Peep Show was my wife and I watched every
Oh yeah,
episode of
Peep Show
Peep
was
Show.
great. So I
Incredible.
mean, it's one of those rare things where you just don't see sketch comedy shows happening anymore unless it's something, you know, from back when that people are saying, okay, we still love it. So yeah, I don't think you could start a Mad TV from scratch today.
Yeah, and part of the problem too is that there's so many options for, like, you know, you're starting with casting. So it's like, okay, well, we need like 8 repertory players who are incredibly talented and can do a bunch of characters and impressions and all that. Well, that person already has, you know, 500,000 followers on Instagram and is,
Right.
you know, and is fine. You know, are
Mhm.
they going to want to come and like be one of 8 people on this cast?
Yeah, and you're
And
going up against people who, like you say, already do things on YouTube. I mean, there's a comedy duo, Chris and Jack. I don't know if you've seen them.
no, I haven't.
Hilarious duo. Back in the day, they probably would have struggled and tried to find a place to be on television. Now they put their own things out, and you know they've probably got more audience than they would have had on TV anyway.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, and more
so
control.
it just kind of all goes to where we are at this point with this kind of comes back to you making your film and you know being able to do other ones, which is that you were able to say, I'm just going to choose to do this. The
Right.
distribution is available. It would not have been possible in the 90s to do something like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, do you see
100%.
that
And
as the place to be now, is to continue to have your own initiative?
I think so. Yeah. And I think that's what a streaming channel is going to be about. You know, I'm speaking to a very kind of small, very committed and interested audience. This is not for everybody, you know, but you know, but if
I
it's
mean,
for
have you
you,
heard
it's
from
for
anybody
you.
who said, I didn't know about the subject matter and then I watched it? Did that happen?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, and that's something else I tried to do with the movie. And there were some people who were saying, you're selling out by making it like you know, it should be for gamers, and it is for gamers,
Sure.
but you've told a poor story if anybody off the street can't watch it. You know what I mean? There's a guy in my game group. This is the game group that goes back to '79. His mom watched it and was like, "Oh, she doesn't know anything specifically about D&D. She just knows her kid played, you know." But she was like, "Wow, this should be on PBS. It's a very interesting story. I had no idea." And that's what you want, you know. And if you tell a good story, it transcends the niche, you know.
Oh, you know, that's good. Maybe I really should get, so I have my father, I should have him watch this because he had to grow up with me, you know, in 1980, getting into
Right.
this D&D thing, and he was very confused about it, right?
Right.
And I remember the whole satanic panic thing happened and all that. And he did come to me, but he was very cool about it all because he didn't like, oh, we're throwing your books out. He talked to me about it. He asked me,
Nice.
what is this? I'm seeing this thing. What's going on? He was concerned, and that's fair. It was a fair thing for a parent to be concerned about. And I just handed him my books and I said, just look through them. Like, if you see anything that, I was like, because it's not there, but if you see anything that screams of Satanism or demon worship or anything like that, you let me know, because I haven't been able to find it. You know, and like a week later, he gave me my books back. He's like, yeah, you're good.
Nice. I think, though, you know, I don't know how old you were at the time, but I think that you also made it easier for your dad by going and being an engineer, you know, or you picked up like a very respectable and you know, something that generation can totally understand. You know, if you're like, Dad, I love D&D and I just want to play guitar and like travel on a bus with my friends, and you know, he probably wouldn't have been as cool with that as like, I have this hobby, but I'm also very serious about this this craft.
Yeah.
So the film, you can stream it at rpghistory. What was it?
.net. Yes, correct.
Yeah. Will you also go down any other distribution routes?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, there's this nowadays hybrid distribution is kind of the buzzword for independent films. I'm a member of the International Documentary Association, which is sounds
What's that?
fancy, but it's it's an organization that puts out a monthly magazine and connects craftspeople of different types and gives you discounts on your insurances and that sort of thing. It's pretty cool and I paid $80 to get in, so it's not like you have to be some sort of a, some
Yeah.
sort of a film genius, but I do love it. And in the magazine, every month or every magazine, they come out every 3 months, it talks about how tough distribution is and how independent filmmakers take a brutal beating. And in this hybrid distribution is like, it starts with, look, make sure you can always stream it on your own site, and then all the international and all the different channels and everything, break that up as much as you can, because that gives you control. If you just give global rights to somebody and then they don't do anything with it, you're stuck, or if you use an aggregator that ends up being bankrupt, then your film is stuck in limbo until all that gets settled. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
'cause
so
I've seen,
many.
for example, independent films end up on Amazon Prime and then they get kind of buried
Right.
there.
Yeah. And they don't do any of the promoting. You have to do all the promoting yourself. And if you're going to do the promoting yourself, you want to configure everything so that you have the best chance of getting your money back,
Yeah.
So, it's,
Do you also, are you
again,
going to be doing festivals and things like that as well? Is
yeah,
that part
we
of
did a
it?
handful. We did the Beloit, Wisconsin Film Festival, which is
Okay.
a really well-respected small festival. Gen Con Film Festival we've done twice. We were in the Aquinas Film Festival in Norway, which is cool. But also festivals are
Oh yeah,
kind of
I was looking. I'm like, do we have any? What are those things called? The
laurel
leaves?
leaves.
What are
The
they called?
laurel
The
leaves.
laurel
Laurel
leaves.
leaves. I'm like, okay, there has to be laurel leaves. I see the Gen Con laurel leaves on here.
Right. Yeah. We haven't we have 2 new ones to put on that we haven't done yet. But festivals are actually part of the old school method of distribution. And anymore, films aren't really being bought at festivals,
Oh
so
really?
it's fun to go, but there are only usually a couple of big sales, and then, everybody else has kind of wasted their plane fare and hotel money.
Huh.
So it's tricky, and I wish I didn't have to do all this. You know how it is. I wish
Yeah.
I didn't have to learn all this, but you gotta do it, or all that hard work is kind of for naught.
Yeah. Well, it's, as I said before, really loved it. I haven't finished watching all the extras yet, and I'm really looking forward to John Peterson's extras.
Oh, so
It's good. It's really good.
But yeah, I would absolutely encourage everybody, pick up the Blu-ray, even if you don't have a Blu-ray player, because it's nice to have the actual physical thing, and then you can go stream it afterwards. But it's a beautiful box, beautiful stuff in here, great interviews, and everybody should be watching this.
Yeah.
Hey, just don't try and like play it on your Xbox that's been turned off for about a year.
Oh
Because
yeah,
you'll wind up feel like throwing it through the wall.
Oh, no.
That's Jason when he came down, he brought the Blu-rays. Like, I haven't been able to watch this on Blu-ray yet. I was like, I got that covered, man. I got an Xbox over here. We'll just throw it in the Xbox and watch it, right? Well, I hadn't turned my Xbox on in a year. I don't have time to play video games.
Uh-oh.
I'm making analog games, right? So I turn it on. This has to update for like an hour.
Oh,
and
no.
then I don't know. I just could not get the damn thing. Could not get it to work. So I went upstairs and grabbed an old DVD player that we had that we don't use anymore and could play Blu-ray. So we watched it on that. Yeah, it was funny.
The picture is so much better on the Blu-ray.
It is.
It's nice. Very nice.
And nobody can take it away from you. That it won't disappear from online or whatever happens with your.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nobody can go in, and you won't have some future Amazon president who decides they want to censor some of your words or something.
Right.
Like that.
Yeah. Exactly.
They'll automatically send the AI in to change everything.
And
right.
And that is really happening. There's a lot of stuff that you cannot watch anymore. Like movies have just disappeared from the public eye. Like the DVD is not even on sale now because they've cut back on DVD sales, and then no streaming services carrying it. So you just can't see it at all.
Yeah,
I have the episode, the Dungeons and Dragons episode of Community on my personal server because it's the only way to watch it.
Yeah, it's the only way.
Wow.
Because they took it down. So.
And was it because of the drow makeup?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my
Stupid.
gosh.
Dumb.
Oh my
Anyway,
gosh.
we won't go there for right now. We've gone
No,
on a
no.
pretty long-
That's another
It's
conversation.
another story.
We've gone on a long show tonight.
Yeah.
Pat, thank you so much for coming on and
Yeah, Pat, thanks.
My
being a
pleasure.
sport and sticking around for a long interview like this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun having this book ended. You know, that you were one of the very first conversation I had.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Right, and then here we are, like with the
Good.
finished box set. You know,
Well,
talking about it.
I will definitely see you in Lake Geneva, and
Yes.
hopefully maybe even before that.
Yeah, well, I've got a humdinger of a talk I submitted called "The People versus Gary Gygax," and it addresses all of the sexism and drug use and was he a terrible businessman and stuff. It's a rebuttal of all of those things.
Oh, great! That's
Oh,
gonna be fun.
yeah.
Damn, I wish I was there to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can come.
I'll see if
right.
I can make it.
I think we better wrap up for the night.
Yep.
We're running out of tape.
Yeah. So sorry.
No.
Yeah.
No,
It's all
we
good.
really appreciate you having for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
So I won't bother with all the usual. People know, like and subscribe and give us votes and do all those kind of things. If you haven't done it yet, do it now. And those of you who are Patreon subscribers can join us for the after party over on Discord. And follow Pat. Where are all the places they should follow you, Pat?
Oh, Kilbane Official on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
And of course, rpghistory.net.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Thanks everyone for sticking around with us this long. Great having everybody in the chat. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks.